This regular meeting of Arts, Parks, and LA River Committee to order. And it looks as though there are no comment cards as of yet. And that includes no general public comment cards. Is that correct? All right. So I'm going to close the acceptance of general public comment cards at this time since it is 11:09. And if we get any individual comment cards for the items, then we'll hear those. I am joined by Bob Blumenfield, David Rue, and Curran Price, and we will move forward. Now, before I suggest that we take items 3 through 6 on consent, Mr. Blumenfield does have a really great question on. Mr. Blumenfield, which item is that you wanted to take a look at?
A couple of them, there was only one bidder, and the question generically for, the department is why is that, and is that a problem? Generally speaking, you get one bidder, you're going to get a less competitive offer, and so is that something we should be concerned about?
So let's have someone from the department come up and address that before we move on with those items.
Good morning, council members. Matt Rudnick with our concessions unit. I think maybe one of the items on the agenda where you're referencing the one bidder is for our operation at the bookstore up at the observatory. We went out to RFP for that operation. The incumbent operator, Event Network, they're a kind of a very well-renowned cultural retail operator. They operate a lot of the gift shops at various museums and operations like that. We did get one other entity that attended our pre-bidder conference and looked promising but didn't end up bidding. So we did go with the incumbent who did provide a bid. I think to the extent it is somewhat of a unique kind of area of operation in terms of a gift store and bookshop, but certainly we could maybe get the word out a bit better and do some more outreach for things like this.
Didn't we also had one bidder for the pony rides?
There were actually two bidders for the pony rides. One of them was disqualified because they didn't include some contract compliance documentation in part of their bid.
So one responsive bidder. And
correct.
Again, this may not be a problem. It's just, for both of them, it's just a red flag goes up. And,
sure.
And I've just wanted to be assured that I shouldn't be concerned.
Yeah, in each case, these are unique operations, and we feel pretty comfortable with this. In other cases, certainly we would potentially go back out to bid if we feel like we needed to, and we have that right to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Rudnick.
Thank you.
All right, and seeing as there are no public comment cards on items 3 through 6, I'd like to take them on consent. And there are no objections to that, so that means we will move to item number 1. Mr. Sutton-Willis, please read the item.
Item number 1, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Catherine Eidman to the Board of Library Commissioners for the term ending June 30, 2021.
And is it Ms. Eidman or Eidman? Ms. Eidman, please step forward and have a seat. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for stepping up and your willingness to be appointed to the Library Commission. We are very appreciative of that. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you would like to focus on the Commission.
Fantastic. Good morning, council members. My name is Catherine Eidman. I'm an attorney at Public Counsel, which is a nonprofit legal services organization. In my capacity as an attorney there, I bring litigation impact and civil rights cases to advance economic justice, and in particular focus on the educational rights of low-income children. As particular relevance here, last week we actually filed the first case in the country arguing for a federal right to literacy under the U.S. Constitution. Before I came to public counsel, I worked at the private law firm Munger, Tolles & Olson and for a federal judge in the D.C. Circuit. And for the past 2 years, I've also served on the Commission of Community and Family Services, advising the city on the elimination of poverty in Los Angeles. So as a frequent library user and avid supporter of the library myself, I hope to be able to use my professional background working with low-income communities and immigrant communities, as well as my legal experience to promote the mission of the library I've had the privilege of being in touch with the city librarian, and he forwarded me some of the achievements of the library in the past year and the goals laid out in the strategic plan. And it's a privilege to be working alongside such a national leader in providing economic and social and cultural programming, particularly to serve historically underserved immigrant and low-income communities. And so I would look forward to promoting and increasing outreach and engagement. The Every Angelino Should Have a Library Card initiative, and also looking to this committee and council for leadership in implementing the goals of the strategic plan going forward.
Terrific. I love federal right to literacy.
Thanks very much.
That's a term that we should broadcast far and wide. That's great. So it's pretty clear about what you would, your point of view, your focus on the commission. What are some of the challenges you see currently that we could be handling or focusing on more on the commission itself?
I think that, as I mentioned, outreach and community engagement is a major component of what we could improve. There are so many services being provided for immigrant integration, homeless services, the reduction of health disparities, but I think particularly in communities that aren't as familiar with the types of services that are provided, doing additional outreach at schools and through community groups and other community centers would really increase utilization of the fantastic services that are on offer.
Terrific. Colleagues, comments, questions? Mr. Rue.
I just wanted to say thank you for your service and your willingness to serve. I mean, you have an impressive resume and experience. I mean, I have a fondness for libraries in my heart as well, because before I ran for office, I was on the LA County Library Foundation.
Wonderful.
And, libraries, we know it's all, during bad budget years, it's always on the chopping block, and it's always one of the last things to get funded. So we need exemplary citizens like yourselves to step up, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you very much.
All right.
No, I too would like to just thank you for your willingness to step up and step in. Libraries are just so important in every community, but especially in underserved areas, where they often are a window in the world. And so with the ability to bring digital technologies into the libraries, we think that's an important. Also, though, and you sort of touched on it, I think we ought to take advantage of the location of libraries as a delivery mechanism. And so I'd like to see we've had some conversations about this, but I'd like to see the libraries, work collaboratively with other departments. For example, having the workforce center there a couple of days a week, or youth center collaborating at a library, a couple of days a week with some regular hours, so that people just are able to access these programs at the neighborhood level in ways that they perhaps have not done before. But do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's such a fantastic point. I think especially for many youth, they may not have a safe or stable place to go after school. And to have a safe place where services and homework help and tutoring can be provided is a really important role that the library system could play in expanding educational access for young people. And then particularly, as you mentioned, the job source centers and the work that the library has already been doing to increase training for career and job readiness is a very important way that the library can collaborate with the existing work of other city departments.
Okay. Well, we look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Although it sounds like from my colleagues you may already have the votes on this committee, I'll still add my voice and say I'm impressed by your background and look forward to you being on the commission. I like what you talked about in terms of the library serving the underserved and in particular potentially the homeless with the no wrong door policy, and give you a chance to talk about that, how you think the library can be a partner in implementing that policy.
Yes, the announcement that the City of LA is waging a campaign against homelessness, I think, is a perfect entry point for the role that libraries can play in providing services to homeless individuals, connection to mental health services, connection to emergency shelters, services like bus passes. I think that the libraries play internet access for job seeking. I think that the libraries can play a really essential role in connecting homeless individuals and providing support to other services that are available throughout the city and the county.
Great. I'll just add, libraries are great. I was there this weekend with my kids. I think we're there practically every weekend. They're voracious readers getting more books. So it's great for everyone.
I'm there quite frequently myself.
Terrific. All right, it looks like you have a real strong recommendation to move forward as our newest library commissioner. Without objection, we will do just that, so you can be appointed by the full city council at our earliest convenience. So thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, next, Mr. Sutton-Willis, we have item 2.
Item number 2, communication from the mayor and the City Ethics Commission report relative to the appointment of Ms. Thien Ho to the Cultural Affairs Commission for the term ending June 30, 2021.
All right, Ms. Thien Ho, please step forward and have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you and welcome. Now, Thien and I go back about 14 years,
Yes.
back when she worked for the Dodgers organization. And full disclosure, I'm very biased because I know what kind of talent Thien can bring to the table on anything she serves on. So I'm just delighted to see your appointment and to have you here. And please tell everyone a little bit about yourself so they can become as biased as I am.
Thank you for that. I'm very humbled by your kind words. My name is Thien, and I'll tell you who I am in two parts. One is what I do, and the other part is who I am. What I do, my husband and I own 2 businesses in the community that we live. We own a restaurant as well as a spa in Silver Lake and in Echo Park. What I do is I am the communications director for a restaurant company that employs over 30,000 people. Who I am a mother of 2. First and foremost, I am an immigrant who came to the United States as a refugee and lived in Rampart 30-some years ago, 36, a long time ago. And that's who I am. I am the result of what LA has given us, good and bad, and I am fortunate and humbled to serve, if I can, on this committee.
Terrific. So, similar question that I asked for Ms. Eidman is, what are some of the areas you'd like to focus on the Cultural Affairs Commission, and what are some of the challenges that you see?
I think what I want to focus on and the challenges are the same. I believe that diversity is a big part of Los Angeles. It's what makes us wonderful, and it's also gives us our strength and sometimes our weaknesses. And I believe that those are the things I want to focus on as a Cultural Affairs Commissioner. I do believe, and as I live it every day, that it is what will propel LA to be an even greater city in the future.
And I think that your own story, your own narrative, and your appointment to this commission and being here in Los Angeles is a narrative that will inform the work extremely well on the Cultural Affairs Commission. So I couldn't be more pleased. Colleagues, questions?
Thank you.
Comments? Mr. Rue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little jealous because I thought I knew her the longest, but I think you beat me. Thien, it's such a pleasure, and again, thank you for your willingness to serve. I mean, just your own story. I mean, we are a city of immigrants. We are the American dream city, and I think you bring. I mean, your work experience and everything you've done is amazing, but just who you are is a perfect candidate for the Cultural Affairs Commission, and I applaud the mayor for having such a diverse group of commissioners, and thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Terrific. Colleagues? All right. Mr.
I
Price.
just want to join in the welcome, and we know you do an outstanding job, that you bring the kind of background, skills, and experience that really are critical in our city at this time on this commission, so welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And I'll add my voice to that as welcome. You mentioned diversity, extremely important. I would just add, especially when it comes to cultural affairs, to remember the geographic diversity of our city as well. Those of us in the further flung areas of the city sometimes feel deprived of the culture in the city and the resources around culture. It's getting better, but I want to put that out there and encourage you to make some trips out to the West Valley and every area of the city, and to include that in your frame of when you're focusing on cultural diversity in the area.
Noted.
Great point. All right. So seeing as there are no objections, we will advance you to the full City Council for approval and appointment to the Cultural Affairs Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Seeing there's no objections, that shall be the order.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tien. Mr. Sutton-Willis, that brings us to item 7.
Item number 7, the Bureau of Engineering to report relative to the cost and schedule of an alternative design approach to the design plans gifted from the River LA Corporation.
And we have Shirley Lau. Thank you, Ms. Lau, and Deborah Weintraub. Thank you, Ms. Weintraub. And please tell us what you know.
Good morning, Shirley Lau with the Bureau of Engineering Bridge Improvement Division. I'll start off with just a little brief background on the project. This project is located approximately 1/2 mile upstream of Los Feliz Boulevard and will connect the two banks of the LA River, basically connecting the North Atwater community to Griffith Park. The nonprofit organization River LA has been the responsible entity for the design, estimate, specifications, and permits of a cable-stayed steel bridge frame at approximately 325 feet long and 35 feet wide, in which the design is a modified fan with high-stress steel cables attached to a 126-foot tall center mast. There are 2 separate paths, one for pedestrians and cyclists and one for equestrians. Each path is approximately 12 feet wide. The project will require a single concrete pier to be placed in the river and 2 abutments constructed at each end of the bridge. And also there will be improvements at both ends of the bridge where the equestrians will cross the existing paths along the top of the riverbank. An alternative design approach to the design provided by River LA is to use prefabricated bridges. Prefabricated bridges offer a variety of styles, materials, and can range from simple designs to more customized designs. These bridges will be fabricated off-site and delivered to the project site for installation, therefore typically reducing site construction time and lowering costs. The alternative design will still maintain a single center pier in the river, the 2 abutments, and also improvements on either side of the bridge. There will still be 2 separate paths, one for equestrians and the other for pedestrians and cyclists. In discussions with 3 national vendors of prefabricated bridges, BOE estimates that the total cost to complete the project will range from $8.2 million to $10.8 million. And the range in the cost is due to the type of bridge design and material used for the bridge. This total cost to complete includes revisions to the plans, specs, and permits as needed, the construction costs with 10% contingency, permit fees, construction management, design support, inspection, and also maintenance for 10 years. As discussed in my August 15, 2016 report to this committee, an active transportation program grant in the amount of $3.66 million was awarded for this project. One of the funding milestones for this ATP grant is that the construction contract had to be awarded by September 30th of 2016. BOE requested a time extension for this requirement at the August 17th and 18th California Transportation Commission meeting, and it was approved. As such, the new milestone for this grant is to award a construction contract by September 30th, 2017. Should this milestone not be met, the grant is at risk of lapsing and no future extensions are likely to be considered. So based on that ATP grant funding milestone, BOE has put together an accelerated schedule, which I will just briefly go over. The River LA design plans were advertised last week, September 14th. Bids are expected to be received on October 19th. Therefore, in November, BOE will report back on fiscal impacts, if any, on the River LA design. And should BOE be instructed then to implement this alternative design, then revisions to the plans, specifications, and permits will occur between December of this year all the way to March of 2017. We will anticipate to advertise the alternative design in April of 2017 so that the construction contract can be awarded in September prior to the ATP grant funding milestone. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And Deborah, would you like to add anything?
No, it surely did a very good job. I'm just here
Okay.
for questions that you may have.
Thank you. So, a couple of questions. Great report. That's very crystal clear. And let me just sort of give a brief update on the whole, what got us here at this very moment in this committee. And that is, we inherited and accepted the existing design from River LA, which was a suspension bridge, which was estimated to cost $13 million with perhaps even an escalation should that particular design get built for the LA River. And the reason that that's such a concern is that many years ago, I think it was 2011, the goal and the mission and the philanthropic gift included and involved what would have been about a $5 million bridge across the river. And so for various reasons, it escalated. One of the reasons was a design that was quite elaborate that involved a 12-story tower in the middle of the LA River in North Atwater Village. And that has been met with concern in the community and concern from me, concern from my office, I think concern from many circles. It's a lovely, lovely, beautiful design, but perhaps not one that fits there. So what we endeavor to do is get a factual estimate from actual bridge builders in approving this going out to bid on the design as it is. It is not the bridge that will be built, and I want to make sure that what we're trying to do is have a fact-based approach to what eventually gets approved there. So having said that, my questions center around the report. So we're looking at what you feel will be an $8.2 to $10 million bridge based on some prefabrication and modifications of the River LA design. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Now, what if we were to just shelve everything that we've inherited and start from scratch and not do a modification, but just design a more modest but functional bridge? What would be the implications of that? I mean, and I guess where I'm getting at, and I just want to clarify, could it be more cost effective to shelve the current design entirely rather than try to modify it into something that might work better?
I think if we shelved the River LA design completely, then we will have to go back to all the permitting agencies, U.S. Army Corps, Regional Water Board, LA County, all the agencies who have done extensive, I guess, review of what goes basically in the river for the River LA design. So our alternative actually maintains everything that is in the river, and so we're changing basically the deck of the bridge.
So everything above what gets laid down to walk or ride a horse across, everything above that gets changed?
Right, correct.
All right, and so when you say approval through the agencies, we're talking about more time, which we don't have, and money.
Correct.
Okay, that explains that. So then we're talking about this $8.2 to $10 million bridge. We ostensibly have 3.660. So on paper, then we're looking at minimum a $4 million cost savings, according to the calculations done by BOE when we consider the previous design to this current design. And then throw in the fact that from the equestrian community, the previous design posed inherent danger anyway with the cable suspensions. And so that will be addressed in this future alternative design?
Right. The 8.2 million is the 8.2 million estimate is for a very basic design. It's a steel truss type. It does not have cables. They have many of these all over the nation, basically for pedestrian use, but for our alternative, we'll have to have two separate bridges, one for pedestrians and cyclists and the other one for equestrians, but they will be side by side, and they have different height in the railings. So they do design them for equestrians, so when we estimated 8.2 million, it was for a very basic, simple design.
And both tracks, the multimodal track and then the equestrian track, will be set on top of the same engineering function.
Correct.
Right? No, not two separate complete bridges, but one bridge
Correct.
with two different uses.
Right.
And again, with all consideration for equestrian uses on the equestrian section of the bridge. All right, so I understand the gap that we're still looking at. So we're looking at roughly a $5 million gap, give or take. in terms of needing to plug the gap for this future bridge, should we go to the alternative design?
Correct.
And then any possibility of additional ATP funds?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Additional ATP funds.
We have discussed with Caltrans on any additional ATP funds. They really did not give us a definitive answer. They just said that the agency can continue to apply. However, it's definitely not guaranteed. So.
Okay, so that's an open question. And then does this current grant agreement specify any particular design or requirements engineering-wise?
No,
that we're held to?
it simply is it just says it's a North Atwater multimodal, non-motorized bridge. So any type of bridge is eligible for this funding.
All right, and do you feel, I gather from your report that you feel that with this extension of the ATP funds, those funds aren't in jeopardy with any alternative design that we choose, so long as we meet the deadlines.
Yeah, I think
Correct.
that our schedule is extremely accelerated to do the alternative approach. So the soonest that we can get going on that, it's going to be a race to that deadline to award.
Right.
It is an accelerated schedule.
Well, and then lastly, for me, for now, is that do we not have to have the complete funding in place before we start construction, including the 3.660 ATP funding for any bridge we build?
Yes, we do. I guess we originally included the Lacretz family funds as funds available, so that still needs to be discussed with their family should there
Right.
be an alternative design.
And we will have those conversations once we sort this out. So that could still be something that's on the table.
Correct.
And if my memory serves me right, that should be right around $4 million
Correct.
based on the original intent. So that gets us fairly close, and then we have something to go after should we get the answer from that. But one thing I think is clear, colleagues, is that we move forward with this bid for the current design to come back with some factual information, which will then lead us to, with more certainty, on identifying perhaps an alternative design. That's kind of where this is all at. All right, thank you.
Right.
Colleagues, questions, concerns? Mr. Rue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for all those extensive questioning. This is a much-needed bridge, and I'm much looking forward to the progress of this project. And I don't want to reiterate any of the questions, but I just wanted to congratulate you on that extension that you guys got
Thank you.
for the ATP grant. Very important. And, Mr. Chair, we're going to probably keep this on committee, right? Or you plan-
We're going to have some reports back. I'm going to recommend, yeah.
So I look forward to the updates and the progress of this bridge. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Blumenfield?
Thank you. So the estimate for the prefab bridge includes all the costs, right? Or is there going to be an additional shortfall potentially that's different?
It includes basically the cost to complete the project from here on out.
It's all hard and soft costs. Yeah.
I mean, is there a difference in risk between the two alternatives in terms of the cost?
The maintenance of the cables is an item. Maybe you want to...
Yes, I can elaborate a little more on that. So the River LA design there, because it's a cable stay bridge, the estimate for the maintenance for 10 years is higher than what we estimated for the alternative prefabricated design. So that would be one of the main differences.
So that's it. So there's a maintenance difference, but in terms of the predictability of the costs and the potential shortfall, like is the shortfall a definitive number at this point? I'm hearing different things, and what I guess maybe I'll put it this way: what is the shortfall at the moment?
I guess the shortfall is basically determined on whether we have the $3.66 million ATP grant, and we have some other minor, smaller grants. And I think the shortfall is basically dependent on whether the Lacretz family continues with their donation to the project or not. And that one is estimated at $4 million. So should the Lacretz family not participate in the donation of their funds, then that's a much bigger shortfall.
Okay, because in the report there's money from Department of Water and Power, from their county district, from California Community Foundation, the ATP grant, the private foundation, and the MICLA money.
Correct. The other ones are established and will be available. It is just the Lacretz family donation that has not been finalized.
That's the private donor.
Correct.
Right. So that's the only variable in this?
Yes.
In terms of the having enough money to do it?
Correct.
So it's not like if there was a shortfall, it wouldn't come at the expense of other projects or anything like that?
No, that would be the main variable, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Price?
I think at this time.
Okay, terrific. So thank you, Ms. Lau. Thank you, Ms. Weintraub. And so what I'd like to do is just receive and file the BOE status update report, but request BOE to report back in November on the bids and the project status. And that'll point the way for next steps.
Yes, thank
Without
you.
objection, that'll be the order. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. And that brings us to item 8, Mr. Sutton-Willis.
Item number 8, City Attorney to report relative to the Los Angeles River Recreational Zone and the ability of the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority to manage recreation activities in the designated Los Angeles River Recreation Zone.
Thank you. We have Walt Young from the MRCA, and we also have Stefan Faubel from, here he is, from one hot seat to the next. All right, so thank you so much. And Mr. Young, if you could talk a little bit about the recreation zones and your experience over the past 5 years since they've been in existence, and kind of give us an update on where things are.
Chairman and members, Walt Young, MRCA. As far as the recreation zone as a whole, up to last year, we've served approximately 9,500 people, with approximately 2,000 estimated for this year. Once again, injury and illness free, with the exception of one report of a lower leg rash 2 years ago. And so the safety record is pretty impeccable. The reason I'm testifying today is really to point out two different models that have been adopted as far as river recreation. In the Sepulveda Basin, MRCA operates under the authority of the Army Corps of Engineers. And that is a 5-year program, of which we've completed 1 year, that is different than Elysian Valley in that it is year-round, 365 days. We manage it on a consistent basis with rule signs being posted and rules being enforced by both us and Los Angeles Police Department, because any law enforcement agency can enforce our park rules. And it provides a consistency as far as homeless intervention, visitor services, and public safety without it being turned on and turned off, if you will. And that leads me to the Elysian Valley model, which again was a trial program with the city, and we operate at the city's direction. But that, as we all know, operates on a 3-month basis approximately. We've had temporary authority for a year's period, but it is only for that period. And so the unintended consequences of the current model in Elysian Valley is that folks can play by the rules, if you will, for 3 months out of the year, but 9 months out of the year, there is no consistent policy, there is no consistent management authority, and that's because, quite frankly, as a park agency, the state gives park agencies a little more latitude as far as enforcing and creating rules than may be found in a municipal situation.
And Walt, let me just interrupt you briefly and continue, and that is, in terms of activating other stretches of the river, what are the implications for that and challenges of that current arrangement you're speaking of specific to Elysian Valley?
Well, specifically it's funding. We can, as a joint powers authority, pretty much accommodate what the city's desires are. And so basically, in my opinion, you may have something that looks like 3 different options. You could go, for a 5-year term that is simply 5 years of 3 months, if you will, as far as during the active recreation period, which is basically what we have now, but with a 5-year certainty. Another option could be to adopt the Elysian Valley model, and that is you provide MRCA the authority to operate it year-round. Army Corps and the county would still have an opinion as far as when the in-water portion takes place. I'm sure that would not change, probably approximately a 3-month period. But it would provide for consistent management, consistent signage, and once again, even if MRCA park rangers are not the ones that are providing the enforcement, it would provide Los Angeles Police Department a framework in order to provide for public safety within the recreation zone. And then the third model, which you just alluded to, is what about expanding not only the time frame in option 2, but also the geography. And MRCA is prepared to assist the city. Obviously, we're all true believers in this room as far as improving recreation opportunities and public safety. We would, again, be open to discussions as it relates to not only having it year-round, but also expanding the geography to accommodate what the city's desire is.
Thank you. And before we hear from you, Mr. Falble, you mentioned the term framework. So, and what I'll be getting at also with the other items, 19 and 11, is establishing a framework. Because what we have right now is we have this mashup of challenges and restrictions that have existed along the river for decades and decades and decades, and a greater desire and increasing use and activity at the river, in the river. And so where I'm getting at with a lot of these things is getting toward a framework that manages all while we put the funding pieces in place to make things happen there, to improve the infrastructure, restore the habitat, et cetera. And we'll get to that overall sort of philosophy in these other items that I'm talking about. But I think with the experience of the recreation zones over the last 5 years, it's been terrific, but it's also exposed the challenges, but also put the opportunities kind of under a microscope for how we need to grow the authority on how we can manage and maintain the safety and the recreation there. So that's terrific. Anything to add, sir?
Sure. So Mr. Young talked about 2 types of expansion of authority to the MRCA, temporal and geographic. So the temporal expansion is very simple. Right now, the city authorizes the MRCA to run the recreational zone by simple council motion. It's done every year. So it would be very simple to have the next motion simply list an expanded date range, and could either be for 5 years of the 3-month increments, or it could be 5 years continuous. You should know that expanding the authority geographically is potentially doable, but it is more complicated because if we expanded it the entirety of the river within the city, it's controlled by multiple entities. The city, the LA County Flood Control, the Army Corps, and then private owners. Some of them have fee title, some of these entities just have jurisdictional control. So to expand the authority geographically to the entire river, we would have to create a joint powers authority between the county, the city, and the Army Corps. And then we'd have to have ancillary contracts with the various private property owners. All of this is doable, but as you can probably tell, it's complicated. So the temporal one is extraordinarily simple, and the other one is very difficult, but it is possible.
That is a great explanation, and it's something that we covered in the master plan, which was adopted almost 8 years ago now, too. So it's kind of coming to that, isn't it? It's kind of coming to where we need to figure that out based on the activity at the river. A couple of questions. So to go the temporal route, what would be the costs of a 5-year commitment to the zone? We'd still have to identify those costs. Is that correct?
Right. So the
You'd give the approval right now, but not, if we wanted to, but not necessarily deal with the costs right now.
Right. But your question involves costs, right? And so the simple answer is if we were to expand on a yearly basis and the level of service on the MRCA side was focused on the recreation zone period, then the existing $100,000, we're talking about the same amount of man hours, we put in approximately $150,000, so it's a total of about $250,000. If the level of effort were to remain the same, and simply the 9-month period was handled through municipal services and incidental MRCA patrol, then those costs remained the same. If the level of service, the desire for a level of service increases during that 9 months, then on the MRCA side, there would be additional costs. Now, where that funding comes from, obviously, is a board decision, council decision, excuse me. But the one thing I'd like to point out is many of our issues during the winter time, because again, MRCA also provides assistance to the city of Los Angeles as far as swiftwater rescue, in that before there's a storm event, we pre-warn homeless populations that have moved back in. We patrol to prevent a tragedy as far as someone getting too close to the moving water. And we do all that at our expense. But there is the potential for MRCA to be able to tap into perhaps the homeless budget that the city has allocated, to where if we were to provide those services, because quite frankly, again, park rangers, this is what we do. We trudge through the mud and contact people in park land, and we don't worry about our uniforms getting dirty. I mean, this is what we do. If that was a potential funding source, then that could very well help pay for this additional 9 months, if you will. So it's all based upon man hours and level of service and what the city's desire is. Could an extra $250,000, $300,000 make for a highly successful year-round program that then partners MRCA park rangers with LAPD municipal services? Yes, I think you'd have a very good program for that price range.
And then you're talking about essentially exclusive of the recreation zone specifically, but you're talking about a scenario wherein you would patrol the entire 31 plus miles in Los Angeles and through a partnership, essentially.
Potentially. Again, all man-hour driven based upon what a city desire is, based upon billable hours, really to be worked out on a partnership level. One real advantage, again, if the entire zone was to be established throughout the river, outside of the hard costs for signage, so I can't stress enough that being able to give the city the tools, and you read that LAPD, to be able to enforce park rules that, again, the state legislature gives tremendous latitude to, as opposed to that which the municipal codes and city governments are hampered by. It gives the city a real management tool to be able to prevent tragedy, quite frankly, in the river. And we've had our fair share of tragedy because there's unenforceable rules outside of when the recreation zone is in effect.
Well, we've seen the consequences of being hamstrung at the local level when there is the occasional rain. Does anyone remember what rain is in Los Angeles? I'm struggling, but when there was the occasional rainstorm, and then you mentioned Swiftwater Rescue has to go out, because we have these jurisdictional sort of walls at times, and we kind of have this ad hoc by your seat of your pants approach to addressing people living in the river, and then that really expresses itself when there's a flood and someone's been passed out on the riverbed and all of a sudden they're nearly drowning in that. So that happens every time it rains, and that needs to be addressed long term anyway. So you also touched upon this, Walt, but describe to the degree you can the process to assign patrol jurisdiction to the MRCA. You kind of mentioned some of the boxes we'd have to check to get there, but can you articulate them again?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
So just the process to assign patrol jurisdiction across the whole LA River in Los Angeles?
Actually, this part is very easy. We've talked to the city attorney. Because we're a joint powers authority under the Public Resources Code,
Okay.
state government actually gives us a great latitude on accepting jurisdiction. It does not need to be a signed contract or a land lease. It can simply be an agreement, and it's really the same model that we've had through the city for the last 3 to 4 years on the 3-month recreation zone. So if the city council has a formal motion that does certain things, defines term, defines location, asks us to perform a set of services, and that the MRCA ordinance attaches, then those are the only elements that we need. And so on our side of the house, being able to fulfill the city's desires is actually pretty simple. Now, that's also to say then that the MRCA board, we're a joint powers authority, so we have a state partner, 2 local park districts, and a member at large, obviously also have to accept this responsibility as far as what the entire package is. But again, the agency and the board are true believers on the river, and I don't anticipate any issues unless it bankrupts the agency, which none of us would want in the first place.
So the state gives the board the authority and gives local municipalities the
No,
authority?
the state, as far as, again, MRCA is local government under the Joint Powers Authority, but joint powers authorities that are park-related operate under the Public Resources Code, which is the state code.
That's right. That's where I'm getting at.
That's what gives us tremendous latitude.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, quite frankly, we can operate anywhere in the state. Take, for example, how local park districts operate camps 300 miles away in a forest on property that they don't own. And so this whole idea of granting tremendous latitude to park districts under the Public Resources Code to be able to engage in these types of public serving activities is founded in the law.
Great. All right. Thank you. Colleagues, questions, comments? Mr. Blumenfield.
Appreciate it. I mean, I'm very bullish on the idea of increasing the geography and sort of creating clear understanding of how the river is being managed. I mean, you were mentioning at the beginning you thought it was complicated because of all the different, that we'd have to form a JPA. Do we not have to form one because the MRCA is one in order to do this? Because I'm hearing different.
So the city, we don't need a joint powers with the MRCA for the city to authorize the MCRA to run the program in the city land. But if you wanted to expand it geographically to areas that are not owned or controlled by the city, so for example, it's owned by the county or it's privately owned, obviously the city doesn't have the power to do that unilaterally, and that's why we would have to have some sort of, well, with other governmental entities, a joint power agreement.
Although couldn't we just, if we made an arrangement for the city-owned land, that might put tremendous pressure on the county to make their own similar arrangement, and then it would be even more cohesive, and we wouldn't have to have our separate agreement with them. They would likely fall into that that realm.
That could be the case.
And they're certainly, there's a long history of cooperation with the county and the MRCA, so I would think that would be the law, that we wouldn't even have to go to all that trouble. And Mr. Young, what do you think of that? Do you think we could do it individually, or do you think we should have our own JPA with the county and all the rest?
Well, the current model, because quite frankly, the current model is that the Army Corps of Engineers and the County Flood Control District issue a letter of no objection. And so, and that goes to their flood control function, not as a real property owner. And so within the Elysian Valley, there's that has been deemed in years past to be sufficient for the 4-mile recreation zone that it exists currently. It may very well be, again, I can't speak for any of these entities or what the legality of the programs are. It could be that if the city proposed expansion of that, both Army Corps and the county could issue a letter of no objection, and that would satisfy them on their end. That's certainly the model. Whether or not that satisfies the legal requirements or the city's requirements, I can't speak to that. But that's currently what's in place.
Because I would think we could, if we move forward with this, which is something I certainly want to see, representing the headwaters of the river and not representing the recreational zone, but having the bike paths in my area that lead straight to it, I would want to see us do that. And it's tricky up in my area. You have literally a mile of county bike path, which is DG, decomposed granite, and then you have the city mile and a half of bike path, and then the county, and it's so I'm one of those areas that would certainly experience that that problem. But I'll say this: we already have a problem there, where everybody points the finger at whose jurisdiction it is, what signs, what rules apply. So I think it can only get better by having one entity have control with one set of signage, and then we'll have those relationships with the city and county. I'm very confident the county will come along either through the letter of no objection that you reference, or if we have to get them to go an extra step. And I would even put in this urging the county to take whatever steps are necessary to match us. So I'm very bullish on that, and I appreciate the good work that you all have been doing thus far, and I'm eager to expand it geographically and on a time-wise.
Thank you. No, Mr. Price, we're good. Okay, so that's terrific. Thank you so much. My experience at the river since 2002 has been, if signs were to go up right now, advising river users on who to call or what to do, here's what they'd look like. Because the cross-jurisdictional overlay is vast and would definitely need to be figured out. And I agree with you, Mr. Blumenfield. I think we advance this, and it's really one way to add greater clarification as we strive toward that. I'll call it a framework for now, and we're going to get to that a little bit in these items I'm hearing. So here's what I'm going to recommend: that we continue the item in committee and request a report back from the CLA, CAO, City Attorney, with the assistance of the Department of Recreation and Parks, Sanitation, the Department of Water and Power, and here's the best part, and any other departments or agencies as needed. There will be about 30 or 40 probably, on the funding sources and steps needed to give MRCA the authority for a 5-year term operation. And if you could include in the report, you said it, you explained it, Mr. City Attorney, and Walt as well, and that is the geographic and temporal sort of issue in the approach, just so we can daylight everything. And if you could report back to this committee on what I just said.
And what you said included the prices for the geographic expansion?
Yes. Funding sources and steps needed. And we'll be able to come back with a whole sort of menu of items to take a look at. I think that'll be very informative. Clear? We're good? Okay, that shall be the order. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Sutton-Willis, that takes us to items. What we'll do on 9, 10, and 11 is we'll hear them all together.
Items number 9, Bureau of Engineering report relative to various recommendations regarding Plan Alternative 20 to implement the proposed LA River Ecosystem Restoration Project. Item 10, motion O'Farrell, Blumenfield, Martinez relative to the progress reports from various city departments on the Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan. Item 11, Bureau of Engineering report relative to Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan's implementation efforts and river-related projects.
And I think Adele and Sharon, if you could also step forward, and Michelle Mowry also, please. We'll hear all these items at the same time. And Mr. Rudnick, if you're, that's okay. And do we have Christopher Pena from City Planning? Oh, there you are, right in front of me. Sorry. And then, are we good? And then anyone who else needs to step up, Kathy, if you need to, or. And we'll get started. So let's see, if you could just give a report in general terms on, let's start with the conversation about the River Ecosystem Restoration Project, Alternative 20 from Bureau of Engineering, and then we'll continue on.
Hello, this is Mike Affeltz on behalf of the Mayor's LA Riverworks Office and the Bureau of Engineering. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council members, for having us today. So this is in response to Council File 14-1158S2 regarding the LA River Ecosystem Restoration Plan. As you all know, the Los Angeles City Council, as non-federal sponsor, adopted the plan on June 29th of this year. The project is included in the Water Resources Development Act under consideration by Congress, which is crucial. So just last week, the U.S. Senate on September 14th voted and passed this act, the WRDA Act. Up next would be consideration of the bill by the U.S. House of Representatives. So we've done our job. We've adopted the plan locally, and now we're waiting for U.S. Congress to adopt and approve the WRDA plan, which includes our project as well as many others. Until the project is authorized by Congress, it will not be eligible for significant appropriations. So one of the steps in front of us now is development of the initial agreements to get into the implementation phase, beginning with design, which is known as Pre-Construction Engineering and Design, or PED. So the city, represented by Bureau of Engineering and staff of the local LA district of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, have begun preliminary discussions toward development of those agreements to govern PED. What would happen is that we would collaboratively develop a design agreement. That's the first document that governs our relationship in the design process. And as a component of that design agreement is a project management plan that outlines the specific tasks that we would accomplish together to design the project. Similarly, the feasibility phase, the 10-year phase that we just completed by adopting the plan, also had a PMP, a project management plan that outlined specific tasks. Once the design agreement is completed that governs the PED, the pre-construction engineering design phase, and we get into design, sometime later that will result in the first set of ready-to-go plans and specs, and we move towards the construction phase. At that point, the city and the Army Corps would negotiate and develop a project partnership agreement, a PPA. I know it's a lot of acronyms. This is the process that we'll walk along with the Army Corps towards. So once that project partnership agreement is created, that essentially becomes the governing document for the rest of the project and supersedes the previous design agreements. And then from then on, the project partnership agreement governs the relationship between the city as a non-federal sponsor and the Army Corps of Engineers in the actual completion of the project and the remaining design phases. So at a future time when first the design agreement has been developed to a certain point, it will come before the City Council for comment, approval, and execution. And then at a later time, similarly, the project partnership agreement would come before the City Council for its approval. At this time, for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers actually has been appropriated $100,000 for staff development of the design agreement and the project management plan, as I mentioned. That amount does not require city matching funds. Once we get into PED, there is an initial $400,000 expected to be appropriated to the Army Corps of Engineers for the initial PED work. More will be required after that, but $400,000 was outlined in the President's budget. That initial amount would require the city funds to match it in the amount of $215,000. So the next steps now is to, of course, look to U.S. Congress to authorize to pass the WRDA bill, which gives the project its authorization, and then to continue the meeting with the local district, the Army Corps of Engineers, and developing the project management plan and the design agreement for City Council's consideration and approval. And that concludes my update on that item. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't expect anyone, if you don't have anything to add, to speak up, but if you do, on what Michael just covered? No? Okay, no. So some questions, so of all the things you just mentioned, Michael, in terms of all the agreements that could get approved and funded, they could move forward without the approval of WRDA by Congress or identifying any funding yet in future appropriations. All that could move forward while the other is pending. Is that correct?
That is true. Development of the design agreement can and is moving forward while WRDA is still a pending item, yes.
And Deborah, this might be a question for you, and that is who from BOE has been handling the ongoing work with the Army Corps of Engineers for the design agreement and the pre-construction and engineering and design, those are the PED.
In terms of management, it's been my responsibility. Michael has begun meeting with Army Corps, and I have met with them once and looking for feedback from them on those agreements. I was the one who negotiated the agreements for the feasibility study, so I have some experience with that.
A lot of experience with that. Okay. And so Michael, you're also on Riverworks through the mayor's office too. So are you dividing your time equally or something with BOE and the Riverworks team? I'm not clear on that.
Michael is reporting to me as he is a Bureau of Engineering employee. He also reports to the mayor's office.
Okay. Are you the primary report?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Thank you. And so is a dollar amount being bandied about in the WRDA cycle for the pre-construction costs?
The dollar amount in the WRDA language is the full project amount. So it's the $1.3 billion. There is no separate line for design agreements in the WRDA bill.
Okay, that is the set amount.
Yes.
Okay. And any idea on when we'll hear something regarding the action of the House of Representatives?
I think it's anticipated this week that they will act, so we should hear by the end of the week.
Okay. So they'll act, and so we'll see in this election cycle with Democrats in the minority in Congress. We'll hope. We'll hope. And I know many of us have met with the chair from Pennsylvania of Public Works, and he seems to be an ally, but we'll find out how far-reaching his abilities are.
Well, they will go into conference if there's different bills on both sides, and that will be an important process.
Okay, terrific. So just a quick sort of background on this, and then we'll continue, and I'm sure everyone will have a chance to weigh in. So it was in 2007 that we adopted the master plan, the River Revitalization Master Plan, and that was years of work and consultancy, and I think just about everyone here, we all bonded over that experience. And so we're coming up on, the 9th anniversary of that. Yeah, already coming up on the 9th. So the overall goal was to reorient the river to a place of destination, to correct the negative impacts on the river environment, to bring smart planning with environmental projects, to bring people to bike and walk and boat. So we are poised and ready to further that overall goal and the initiatives. And so my motion seeks to unify and bring together the multiple projects, the initiatives, and the objectives under one roof. So the reason everyone's assembled today is I've asked all departments to report on the current makeup, the structure, the status of all projects related, linked, or otherwise focused on furthering the goals of the River Revitalization Master Plan. As chair of this committee, I want to carry out the goals of the plan and create a lasting entity tasked with care. I keep talking about a framework because we're starting to bump up against little walls here and there that make it more difficult for us to fully move forward on many levels. A framework to create a lasting entity tasked with the care, maintenance, and furtherance of the goals that we have for the river, its tributaries, and all of its communities which it serves, including the headworks in Canoga Park. So we really are thinking more about the river holistically. And of course, as you've heard me and you know that we're moving forward with the Enhanced Increment Financing District study, not just for Los Angeles. My report will be for the city of LA, but there's great interest in financing all up and down the 51-mile stretch, so that's a good thing. So I ask everyone here, what's the collaboration? What's the level of collaboration and interaction amongst all the city departments regarding the master plan? Just if everyone could, from planning, Michelle, from your perspective, sanitation, everyone, what's the level of collaboration as it stands now? Anyone can go first.
Go first.
I think Michelle grabbed that microphone first.
Gosh, I shouldn't be so anxious. Michelle Mallory, Senior Project Coordinator with Department of Transportation. I'm in our bicycle group in the Active Transportation Division. We work pretty closely with everyone else on the river. While we do maintain the maintenance function on the river, our engineers are transportation engineers. They're not civil designers, so we depend on our brothers and sisters in Public Works in the Bureau of Street Services, as well as the Bureau of Engineering, to work with them on the design of the path and as we move forward. We generally apply for the funding. We worked with the Mayor's Office and Bureau of Engineering on a Tiger Grant application last year. Unfortunately, we just heard within the last month we didn't get those funds, but it's something we will continue to chase again. I serve on the TAC with BOE on the New Valley Design Project, and we're continuing to work with the Bureau of Engineering on the Taylor Yard Bridge, as well as the Riverside Drive Zoo Bridge. We're actually getting an underpass as a part of that will continue the project through there. And we're talking to DWP about the project in the Headworks. There's a little bike path as a part of the Headworks project that'll extend the LA River bike path through there.
That's great news. You said Riverside Drive project with an underpass on the bike trail.
Correct.
That's really great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
something that's been
huge.
on the books for quite a while.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. So there's good integration from transportation. Adele, you're going to...
Great. Thank you for bringing us together here. I think it's essential that we always come back and check how we're doing. Sanitation is the environmental agency for the city. We're responsible for protecting public health and the environment. We have 3 programs: solid resources, we have the clean water program, the wastewater collection and treatment, and we have the watershed protection. All of these programs are essential, critical to the LA River revitalization. We'll start with the solid waste resources, the solid waste program. You know, addressing trash and removing trash across the city and cleaning the city through the Clean Streets program, through the trash receptacles, is a critical element for protecting the river and allowing the river to revitalize. And I'm glad to say that finally, under your leadership and leadership of the mayor, we have a direction and funding and programs to clean the city streets and make the city a cleaner city and a healthier street. When it comes to the clean water program, the wastewater program, 85% of the water in the river comes from our water reclamation plants. So that's an essential thing to know. And what we have been doing for a while is, most recently, is we've upgraded our wastewater reclamation plants, water reclamation plants in the San Fernando Valley and by the Glendale area to investment of about over $100 million to remove ammonia, which is toxic to the river. That has been addressed. And also we've addressed our sewer system. We've implemented and aggressively improved our sewer system, whether it's across the city, but specifically in Eagle Rock, Highland Park, South LA, where we used to have spill. Every time we had a rain event, it would spill. And we've reduced sewer spills by 85%. That's a huge potential benefit to the river and what we're doing. And now we're doing the one water planning. We are trying to manage water as one water, whether it's storm water, recycled water, potable water, all that is being done to really make us sustainable and resilient. But one of the things that we're looking at is capturing more water and reusing it. What does that do to the river? That balance has to be discussed. We're working together through this stakeholder process with our partners in engineering, planning, all departments, water and power, and the stakeholders to develop this balance between capturing and maximizing the use of water and maintaining the beneficial use of the river. That's something that's essential and critical to our One Water plan. On the stormwater program, the water protection, which is essential, Shahram Karagani is the head of our watershed protection program. I call him the watershed protector. And what we've done is actually looked at ways to work with our neighbors, because water doesn't know boundaries. The watershed in the LA River is not just City of LA. It's a partnership with many cities. We have 18 cities and agencies in the Upper LA River watershed, and we've partnered together to develop an enhanced watershed management plan for the Upper LA River watershed, as we did for other, I think, 3 additional watersheds. But I'll speak to the Upper LA River watershed, and the focus is to capture runoff, reuse it, build green infrastructure projects, regional projects, in a way to green our communities, reduce the peak flow that goes to the river, so when it rains, we don't get the slug of water so we can do more during the rain, and that's something that we have in place. The cost is about $3 billion to implement this over the next 20 years, so funding is a big issue. So thank you for your help on your efforts on the funding, but we need to have a bigger dialogue of how we can continue to invest. We are building a number of projects across the city through Prop O and many grants and other things that we've been doing is a multi-benefit projects with the partners Water and Power. We're building green projects across the city, regional projects. We are working on a regional project in Sun Valley, the Rory Shaw project that's going to capture runoff from 1,000 acres, put in the ground and create a wetlands park that's going to help water quality, flooding, reduce and capture water and replenish the groundwater. We are finished a couple of projects in the South LA area. We did one in Avalon Green Alley, which is Greenway, now capturing runoff and restoring an alley to a what I call a one water alley, capturing runoff, putting it in the ground. We just finished Broadway by the church in South LA, and we're capturing runoff and putting it in a cistern that's going to help us. That all leads to the river. Also by the area around the 110 freeway and Figueroa, there was an alley full of trash, and connecting the community. The community couldn't go through it. It was just full of trash and eyesore. Now it's a greenway, capturing runoff from the freeway, from the community, and connecting the community to the transit at the 110 freeway. Along the river, we built a number of projects with the partnership with engineering, Water and Power, and many of our partners, but more needs to be done. And it's the key thing that we're saying is we are planning differently, we're coming together differently, we're thinking differently because we want to do multiple benefits, things that can do more than just one thing. And the river is the core, is the backbone of what we want to do, but everything we do is helping the revitalization. Shahram and his team finished the installation of over 40,000 catch basin screens across the city. We're in full compliance with trash TMDL, so you see less trash in the river. I think we've done a great job. We'll continue to do monitoring of the river. Our staff are there regularly to monitor the river to ensure that we have science and data to evaluate. And I would say the river quality today is better than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So things are getting better, and the exciting thing is people now are using the river and kayaking the rivers. But more needs to be done, and the way we do it, as I always say, is through innovation, integration, and inclusion, and that's something we're doing under the One Water.
That's terrific. And we'll hear from the whole panel, and then we'll open us up for questions. But I want to insert a real quick one, and maybe Ms. Cortez-Davis, you can help answer this as well. Adele, you just mentioned all of the funding for the improvement and upgrades of the treatment plants and all of the installations at all of the the grates over all the street drains, et cetera. Is that expected to improve the water quality even more in general? And will we see results in future evaluations of the water quality? Will we see improvements?
Yeah, let me have Shahram do that. I want to have him, because he's the one that makes things happen. Let me have him answer that question.
Because I know that Heal the Bay did a study and published a study about 3 or 4 months ago. It didn't tell us anything we didn't already know, but it received some negative press. And I'm just wondering if we can expect a boost, a benefit, and an improvement in water quality in the coming months from these most recent improvements.
Good afternoon, Shahram Karagani from LA Sanitation. Mr. Chair, the short answer is yes, because what the projects do, they basically keep the 85 percentile of every rain event on their side and use that for beneficial uses. So that water does not have the ability to come to a street, which is basically the transport. Most of the corridors we have, because 360 days of the year they are dry, they have a lot of pollutants on them. So when the rain comes, they're all washed in the LA River. So having green projects, both distributed and regional, are improving water quality. And as Adele mentioned, that our monitoring result of the actual LA River and other water bodies that we are watching also indicate the same. We are not completely there yet because the water bodies are still impaired and we need funding, but it has been improving.
Okay, terrific. All right. Let's hear from DWP.
Good afternoon. It's now afternoon.
Welcome.
My name is Evelyn Cortez Davis. I'm with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power in the Water Engineering and Technical Services Division. And I wanted to give you a brief update on the 3 areas that were requested in the motion. Status of our major projects, status of our major partnerships, and some of the investments that we have been participating in from LADWP side alongside our partners from the city and elsewhere. So in terms of major projects and program status, between 2006 and 2016, LADWP has contributed more than $84 million towards local and regional stormwater capture projects. Some of these projects are still in progress. Some of them have been completed, and they vary between centralized projects and distributed projects, everything from spreading grounds improvements to dams up in the mountains, to dry wells and swales in localized neighborhoods. These projects, in addition to augmenting local groundwater supply, do have the benefit that Sharam just described to you all of improving stormwater runoff quality and, of course, attenuating peak flows within the LA River when the storm events do happen, someday when the rain does come back. Many of these projects are mostly in the upper LA River watershed, and they have been in large part collaborations with LA County and other entities, so not necessarily exclusive to LADWP, and certainly with the collaboration of the city team as well. So it's a very integral part of our stormwater capture projects that we collaborate. That just basically goes without saying at this stage. The selection process that we go through in order to determine which projects can be part of our program from the LADWP funding side really rely on three major criteria. The geology of the area, which allows the water to actually infiltrate properly, whether or not the city has rights in that area to be able to pump, and also if the water is pumped in that area, whether we have the infrastructure to convey it to where we need it. So these are many other criteria may go into the selection, but that's the three primary drivers. And as a result, we've had this opportunity to set up a program that has major projects already in progress. We are looking at the possibility of over $200 million over the next 10 years of similar suites of projects in collaboration with the other city departments and the county. So that is one of the areas that we're focusing on is the upper LA River watershed specifically. In terms of major partnerships, as I mentioned, most of our projects that we are participating in are partnerships as a matter of the nature of the collaboration and the contributions that we provide. We collaborate regularly with not only the city team, BOE, sanitation, planning, LADOT, Reclamation Parks, but also LA County Flood Control Districts, the Department of Public Works at LA County, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, NWD, and also stakeholders like tree people, County Sulphur Watershed Health, the River Project, LA Beautification Team, you name it. If we are talking about watershed management in general, that does have a benefit to the LA River, and we do want to participate as much as we can with them. One of the ways that DWP has been actively engaged with the LA Riverworks office in the mayor's office is to expand or support further the work of the Los Angeles River Cooperation Committee, and that is an interagency committee that you may be aware of that is cuts across or allows the county, the Army Corps, and the city team to collaborate on a regular basis, and we have just recently established a subset of the staff focus group that actually supports that committee to focus on water issues specifically. So all of the water supply related recommendations that will go before that cooperation committee in the future will actually be considered by this water focus group. That is, LADWP had the opportunity to volunteer to coordinate, and we're happy to serve in that role right now. And we're pleased that all of the agencies that are represented on the River Cooperation Committee are actively participating in the water focus group, and obviously the LA Riverworks office, Michael and Carol Armstrong, very much in a leadership role there. Mayor's office has also been directly involved with the water focus group, Ted Bardacki, and we kicked that off in June, and we're going to be meeting regularly to support the River Cooperation Committee's work.
And are the council offices, all council offices that Touch the River invited to all of these meetings?
So we have some that are already sort of signed up in our information list. Anyone, that wants to participate with us is welcome to. Michael, do you want to add?
Yes, staff from council offices along the river are included in the staff focus group distributions and welcome at any of the meetings.
In addition to the water focus group, as part of the staff focus group, we regularly interact with these other agencies and take into account input from whatever planning efforts they're taking into their organizations, into the planning efforts of LADWP, including the Urban Water Management Plan, the Stormwater Capture Master Plan that was just completed, our Recycled Water Master Plan implementation that's been in place since 2012, our Water Conservation Potential Study, and any collaborations with the Mayor's Office on the Sustainable City Plan. That's an ongoing effort. And obviously also, as Del mentioned, the One Water LA 2040 plan is a critical effort. The LADWP is very pleased to be participating actively with LA Sanitation and the rest of the city team in integrating as well our stakeholder outreach that had been in place for more focused on the recycled water aspects of the city's water program alongside sanitation. We had launched a stakeholder engagement effort under the Recycled Water Advisory Group, and we have had a group of about 70 stakeholder organizations participating with us since 2009. Just recently, in partnership with LA Sanitation, we have merged the stakeholder activities into the One Water LA plan efforts so that we can sort of integrate and streamline their participation, so we're not taxing them too much on their time, and we can take advantage of the opportunity when they come together for us to discuss both recycled water, because that is part of the One Water plan. It does make sense, and it seemed to be an obvious step. In terms of coordination on an ongoing basis, where there is a need for an entity, whether it's a city program or outside privately, to access portions of the river corridor that may have right-of-way issues within our power system, for example, or their property, we have a process by which we collaborate with whoever it is requesting access to make sure that if access can be provided, that it is provided safely, and that we continue focusing on coordinating to make sure that every opportunity is brought to its full potential. In terms of major investments, to close my report, since 2005, in addition to the projects that I mentioned, we've invested just over $7 million to specifically for planning efforts and studies that have river revitalization benefits, and that includes just over $2 million to do follow-up work on the river revitalization master plan itself that required some follow-on types of studies. The U.S. Army Corps Ecosystem Restoration Feasibility Study, we provided just over $1.3 million since 2010 to support that effort, and about $900,000 to complete the Stormwater Capture Master Plan that I described earlier.
And when was that completed?
The Stormwater Capture Master Plan was completed last year, 2015, and it is available online at ladwp.com/stormwater.
Terrific.
We just in a closing thought, the idea that Adele emphasized is so critical regarding multiple benefits. When it comes to the river, LADWP has a very specific mission, and we have to balance, like Adele said, and we need to continue reinforcing this message, not only as we talk with the city partners and other agencies, but also with our community and our stakeholders, that we have needs for water supply and for water quality, and also for ecosystem and the river, and those two things need to come into balance. And so we continue to work together to make sure that that balance is achieved.
Terrific. Thank you. What a comprehensive report. Thank you so much. Mr. Pena, would you like to talk about city planning?
Certainly. Good morning, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members. I'm Christopher Pena with the Department of City Planning. I'll be giving an update on the Department of City Planning's progress in implementing the 2007 Master Plan. In 2012, the City of LA adopted the Cornfield Row Specific Plan. It set zoning and urban design standards governing development and redevelopment around the portion of the river immediately adjacent to downtown. It enables diverse land uses near the LA River to create job growth, economic opportunities, and to create new open spaces. The plan embeds economic, housing, and environmental principles established in the master plan. Currently, DCP oversees project planning and implementation for new projects in the CASP to ensure their compliance.
And talk a little bit about the CASP. Just explain what that is briefly.
Sure. So the CASP is divided into 4 zones. We have it's a specific plan that divides the area into 4 zones. We have a greenway, which is established for open space. There's an urban center, which is established for residential and employment within the same site. And then there's also an urban village, which allows commercial, residential, and industrial uses within the same area. And then we have an urban innovation center, which allows for more industrial usage. The reason for this is to have all these diverse uses is to have a self-contained community that offers housing, commercial opportunities, and open space for residents within the area.
And that's essentially Lincoln Heights leading into downtown as far as the area.
Correct, the portion of Chinatown East, yes. And to continue, in 2003, the Warner Center 2035 was established. That's also a specific plan in the portion of San Fernando Valley adjacent to the LA River. It's adjacent to the Orange Line as well, and it was created to establish a mixed-use, transit-oriented district for the planned area and surrounding communities. Per the vision of the master plan, a river district was established. The river district governs the orientation, usage, intensity, floor area ratio, height, frontage, and landscaping of new projects within the new district. Again, that's overseen by the project planning and implementation for new projects in the area is overseen by project planning. In 2014, the city adopted the LA Rio, which is an approximately half-mile zone along the entire length of the LA River within the city's 32 miles. Additionally, compulsory standards were called the Rio, the River Improvement Overlay District, were set forth for all development projects in the zone, which established landscaping, screening and fencing, lighting, orientation, and buffering. In 2014, the Department of City Planning, in conjunction with EWDD, Economic Workforce Development Department, worked to complete the Northeast Los Angeles Riverfront District Vision Plan. The purpose of the Vision Plan was to develop a long-term framework that informs a multitude of agencies of future economic and recreational investment priorities along the river corridor. The plan addresses physical design in urban form and contextualizes the role they influence new development and the relationship to social and environmental factors. The Nilo Riverfront District Vision Plan helped establish a hierarchy of community-vetted economic development and workforce development programs. In 2014, the Department of City Planning and its Urban Design Studio established the River Design Guidelines to further supplement the development regulations established in the Rio. The guidelines look to communicate design qualities, consistent river-wide design objectives, foster a sense of community, and establish an interface and reduce the amount of untreated water entering the river and its tributaries. The design guidelines are only recommended for new development projects within the supplemental use district that are looking to acquire density bonuses and other discretionary approvals listed in the municipal code. Due to their non-regulatory status, they are currently only recommended and highlight the degree of design and practices established within the the master plan. That brings us up to recently, the Los Angeles River Design Guidebook. In 2016, the Department of City Planning, Mayor Eric Garcetti's Office of LA River Works completed the LA River Design Guidebook. The purpose of the Design Guidebook was to provide inspiration and guidance to the general public, elected officials, residents, property owners, river community stakeholders, and others regarding river-sensitive and riverly design characteristics that will be featured that will be built, rehabilitated, and redeveloped on private property and in the public realm along the LA River. The guidebook focuses on the industrial corridors that are parallel to the LA River in the communities of Boyle Heights, the Arts District, Lincoln Heights, and Chinatown East. The guidebook established 73 multi-beneficial design recommendations. It's also set to launch in September this month. Recently, the Department of City Planning is also advancing a comprehensive revision of the city's outdated zoning code, which was established in 1946. The new code will direct on how buildings should look and how they relate to their surroundings and may include river-specific zoning and context standards. Because development is occurring rapidly in river communities, the city has created the Los Angeles River Design Guidebook to provide near-term design guidance that will complement and inform the recode process. The Community Plan Program. There's recently been a mayoral directive to update all the 35 community plans within the next 10 years. Currently, the department is updating the community plans for the areas of Central City North and Boyle Heights. Both share borders with the LA River and share limited access due to the presence of heavy rail. Since the last updates each community plan, Central City North, Boyle Heights, and Boyle Heights there's been a lot of increase in demand for the LA River. Both community plans are addressing upcoming large infrastructure projects such as the Arbor Study and general desire of local residents to be better connected to local space. Recently, the Boyle Heights community team held a scoping meeting to collect feedback from residents regarding the potential impacts of the proposed policies and goals established within the Boyle Heights community plan.
Terrific. And as far as that directive with city planning, the city council, through the budget process, authorized many positions, 10 of which are filled, and many more to come to update all those community plans. So I congratulate our own Budget and Finance Committee and the full City Council for adopting that and making that very necessary step happen. Thank you for your report. Ms. Santo Domingo from Rec and Parks, would you like to add to this?
Good afternoon. Kathy Santo Domingo, Recreation Parks Planning, Construction, and Maintenance. One of the items within the motion basically relates to public access. And with Recreation Parks owning or leasing or have some level of agreement for quite a bit adjacent to the river, I just wanted to provide this committee an update on various projects that we're working on. As you know, we have all of the LA Riverfront projects funded by Prop K, with the bikeways, Phase 1 completed a few years back, Phase 2 partially completed, and the Phase 2B already in progress. And this provides quite a stretch of bikeway improvements along the valley. But it is only a portion. Recently, we are basically working with Bureau of Engineering and all of the various partners with the LA River Bikeway project. In fact, we found that this particular project is that much important that in addition to the potential $1 million of Quimby, Department of Recreation Parks identified another $1 million to support this project. Going back to the $1 million in Quimby, with the Quimby reform moving forward, I know the 5 council offices that are adjacent to the river have committed some of their Quimby dollars for that effort. So in order to move those fundings forward, we're very much interested in continuing the conversations for the master land use agreement to move the Quimby dollars into the project. So I know that that project, led by Bureau of Engineering, had the design kickoff meeting, and there's quite a few ins and outs along the river's edge in Sepulveda Basin. Our staff is more than happy to support the design team with the areas that we're familiar with in order to facilitate the identification of the alignment for the bikeway. Another project that we wanted to touch on, since we're very excited to be receiving this project, is the Albion Park project. Albion Park is immediately adjacent to our Downey Recreation Center. Right now, our community members are Downey is very much concerned with they're surrounded by construction. And we've had to speak with our community members to let them know that, just hold on, good things are coming. We have the improvements along North Spring Street and Broadway that'll be finishing up, and that'll improve the west side of the park. And then just south of the park is Albion Park. This will add a substantial acreage to the park, 2 synthetic fields or synthetic meadows with quite a bit of viewing space facing into the river. This is majority funded by Proposition O. It's also funded by Prop 84. So we're very much excited to get this project. It was recently approved by the Board of Recreation and Parks, and as I understand, it's going to be going to the Board of Public Works for bid and is getting ready to gear up for construction. So that one, we're very much excited, and we're looking forward to that park. Another park, which at first, to be quite honest, when our general manager, Mike Shull, first mentioned it to me, I kind of gave him the big eye of, what are you talking about? It's 6th Street Bridge Park. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I've always thought of that area of 6th Street and Santa Fe to be this absolutely crude, and you wouldn't want to be there after hours. So more recently, I've kind of reestablished myself to drive around the area and look around the area. And yes, it is a fantastic idea. So with the 6th Street Bridge going into construction, there's this opportunity for this fabulous park, both on the east side and on the west side of the bridge, underneath the bridge. So I've been working with Bureau of Engineering, and again, led by Bureau of Engineering and Deborah Weintraub's team. We recently went through an interview process for selecting a design consultant, and we're still in the final stages of that selection process. But this will add approximately 7 acres of park underneath 6th Street Bridge. And with that, there's 2 access points that would provide some river access from both the east side and the west side into the river.
Let me ask you real quick. Are you going to repurpose the current access points that would take you under the old 6th Street Bridge? Are you going to repurpose those as access? Those tunnels?
There's an existing tunnel that comes from the west side into the river, and yes, that's part of the project.
Okay, that's terrific. Some of that infrastructure is already there. It can be, I'm just curious.
Yep.
That's in, I think that's in Council District 14, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
Councilmember Weezar's district, yes.
Please continue.
And then, of course, the last big project, which we've been working very closely with your office, with Christine Peters, is the reorganization of CSY. So that's quite a bit of acreage, and Christine, I'm pretty sure, could correct me, 20-plus acres of space.
She can give you more factual information about that parcel than any one of us would ever need to know.
So with
But
that,
it's great.
with that, it's really pulling quite a bit of our staff and our own staff's reluctance in that, oh, you're displacing central services yard in our central service. So it's been quite a bit of conversation, and we've had a handful of meetings with Bureau of Engineering and their consultants, and really working with all the different groups that are housed in this particular service yard. So there's been a couple of schemes that's discussed and a couple of ideas moving forward, and I think we're now at a point where we're very much on board with providing quite a bit of green space adjacent to the river within this yard and how to make it work moving forward.
That's terrific. Thank you for your work on that.
So these are all really big projects that's coming our way or to the department and in turn to the public. They're all river adjacent and will certainly contribute to revitalization and providing additional access to the river.
Terrific, thank you. And just, Kathy, do you or does a representative of Reclamation and Parks check in or liaison with this cooperation meeting that takes place?
Yes.
You yourself there, perfect. Perfect, you. All right, and we'll close with Bureau of Engineering.
Yeah. So a lot of the efforts that have been mentioned by my colleagues here are ones that we're very involved with, either leading or supporting. The Bureau of Engineering was tasked with the passage of the master plan, of implementing the master plan, and there have been many projects that have been completed or are in the works. At this point, my colleagues here have mentioned a couple of ones that I'm very personally involved with and excited by. The 6th Street Viaduct actually results in 12 acres of new open space, which is great, and it's river adjacent. The gaps, Valley Bikeway gaps, we have hired a design team and started that process. It's 12 miles of gaps that we're going to be taking through environmental clearance and a feasibility phase, and then deciding which to proceed on in terms of specific designs.
Will you be able to do one master environmental clearance?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
That's our intention. The Albion Dairy project, which was designed both by consultants and in-house with Bureau of Engineering staff, is ready for bidding, and that's a very exciting new project next to the river, which includes proper water quality elements, as well as additional recreation and parks space. All the bridge projects where we can do riverly things, we have been doing it. Someone mentioned earlier the Riverside Zoo Drive, where we have an undercross at the Glendale Hyperion Bridge. We had a mitigation measure of a pedestrian bridge that we convinced our oversight agency, Caltrans, that we should build it and keep it, so that facilitates river access there. In an ongoing basis, we also do a lot, the LA River Works, which, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of a hybrid organization that reports to engineering and to the mayor's office. We do a lot of coordination with our nonprofits who also are implementing river projects. And we also lead the effort for a River Cooperation Committee, which is this committee created out of the master plan, which includes the Army Corps, the county, and the city of Los Angeles. So I'll leave it at that because a lot of the other things were mentioned already.
Terrific. All right. Wonderful. So Ms. Weintraub, you mentioned some of the great projects that are being worked on. At what point, it's interesting because the master plan is going on 9 years old, as I mentioned, and things change and evolve. They really evolve. So some of these projects will come before us, not all of them will. Are we on some sort of track to get them queued up for any sort of council action that is required for approval?
Yes, the projects that will require council action, like approval of environmental documents, will all come before this committee.
Okay. And it's pretty clear that things are moving forward, and that's terrific. So thank you all so much. Does anyone would like to add anything else to this? Because I'm ready. Yeah, Adele, and then I'm going to be ready to...
I want to just let you know that on the low-impact development ordinance that requires city developments to capture runoff on site for infiltration reuse is being revised right now. And one of the things we're given is an option to have an off-site equal somewhere else so you can meet your requirements for your development somewhere else. We're trying to incentivize the developers to do something in the LA River Rio area. So that's a linkage that we're trying to do. Hopefully we can have a lot of things be done along the river as part of the low impact development compliance. So that's a linkage. We are linking what we're doing with the river efforts, and that's, to me, I think something to watch for. And we are looking always to bring our staff and our workers closer to the river in terms of finding a home. You know, we're looking for a home for our facility down by San Fernando Road, and we're looking for ways to integrate our future with the river revitalization. So that's something that's in the works. Nothing being planned around Lincoln Heights. There's a facility we have in the area that's by Humboldt. We're looking at, is there a way we can repurpose that property to be a clean water campus. Still in the works, still in the planning ideas, but we're hoping that we can actually walk the talk and really step up into the revitalization area as a department.
So Adele, we should talk offline about some possible relocation sites for the previous facility that is near the river, but not within the zone where you want to bring sustainability to the river shores. Okay, thank you so much. So, colleagues, questions? I know the hour is advancing. We'll move right past the next item, but I'm going to make some recommendations after this. Mr. Price, shall we start with you, sir?
Nothing specific. I'm just excited the way the departments are working together in the collaboration. It's a good symbol, and I think it just adds to the enjoyment that will result from a successful river project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll be brief too, and Mr. Chair, I really want to thank you for all you've been doing to advance this. It's just your leadership has been impressive on this and appreciated, and all the collaboration that's going on. A couple very quick things because I know the hour's late. Mr. Weintraub, you mentioned, got me a little concerned with the feds. I thought things were in order because the House had put it in committee, and so now it's got to go to the floor. The Senate already passed it. So I didn't even think it would be a conferenceable item unless somebody takes something out, amends it on the House side. Are the two? Is there a difference between the House and the Senate that's going to make it a conferenceable item that we should worry about? Not that I need something else to worry about, but
yeah. To the best of my knowledge, there isn't, but I'm not really the person who's most closely tracking that.
Okay, great. So I won't be as worried because if it's identical, we should be.
Right, we should be fine. Yeah.
And then the $215,000 for matching funds for the initial PED phase. When do we need to come up with that, and where does it come from?
It would have to come from the city would have to identify a source, and it would come in the next fiscal year, which starts October 1.
But there's not a particular source that we're targeting.
No.
Okay, I'll stop there because of the time. Thank you very much.
Okay. And when you make the rounds for budget requests, will that be one of the items that gets discussed?
Yes.
Terrific. Okay, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership on this matter and this extensive report. I was able to kayak a couple of weeks ago down the LA River, so it was an
Did
amazing.
you get baptized?
Luckily, no.
Oh, okay. All right.
But you know, it hasn't rained in a while, but there were some low spots where the
Yeah.
kayak got stuck. But it was an amazing experience. Almost my entire staff went, and it was great. Just a quick question about WRDA. So it passed. We're just waiting for the. You said it might pass this week.
Yes, that's what I've been told.
Okay. So I mean, is our legislative lobbyist in D.C. working on our behalf? Is there
Yeah.
anything we could do?
It's
probably too late for a resolution or anything like that. Right?
Oh, with all the, I think our resolutions are in place,
Yes.
right? We've,
Right.
they're almost written in red. They're
Right.
so strong.
Okay.
Bright red.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Rue. All right, so thank you so much, everyone, for your, as Mr. Rue mentioned, extensive reports. It's just terrific, and also validating and comforting, and everything, just where we stand has been such an evolution from where we were in 2002 when Ed Reyes kicked off, former Councilmember Ed Reyes kicked off the Ad Hoc River Committee on the Broadway Bridge, right? And here we are all these years later. So it's interesting. I often feel that my job is relatively easy in terms of everything that has been handed down to me at this stage, especially with most everyone who's been involved every step of the way. There's an incredible amount of institutional knowledge on the master plan, the context of the river as it stands now, the history, and the genesis of everything. So along those lines of evolution, I think that we're at this place where we can really keep taking the long view about what this will all look like in terms of regulating the use, regulating the permit processes for projects, for special events, for you name it, the management, the implementation of the plan. And then, of course, there are all of the permission, levels of permission that we need to get from the county. And they have their own river master plan. And we're very well aware of what some of those elements of that master plan are. So we have to take the view of merging all of these ideas and goals. So what I'd like to do moving forward at this moment is note and file items 9 through 11. And then for item 10, I'm going to read the following instructions. And that would be to direct the CLA and CAO with the collaboration and support of all necessary departments at this table and beyond to report back on the current structure relating to all responsibilities and jurisdictions relative to the management and maintenance of the Los Angeles River and its tributaries, and direct the CLA and CAO with the collaboration and support of all necessary departments to create a strategic management plan with the goal of recommending a clear management structure in order to carry out the functions of the city, county, and federal government. Also, CLA and CAO, with the collaboration and support of all necessary departments, to report back and make recommendations on a streamlined permitting structure for activities such as community events, recreational activities, programmatic or other activities as needed. And to direct the CLA and CAO with the collaboration and support of all necessary departments to report back on the enforcement of LAMC 5611 as it relates to the Los Angeles River and river adjacent areas. The report should include recommendations for any changes needed to clarify the jurisdictional and enforcement issues for the posting and cleanup of attended or unattended belongings, trash, mystery items that end up in the river or next to the river that sometimes will trip a bicycle going along or cause some problems in our communities. So that would be, those would be the instructions, and we'll report back on all of that. And it won't be in 4 weeks, believe me. We'll give you time to do it. But I think it's time to take that large step on what this regulatory structure will look like, and we'll go from there. Without objection, that shall be the order. And okay. So Seeing as there are no objections, that's what we will do. Thank you so much again for all of your hard work, and go River. Thank you. So, thank you. Real quickly, Mr. Sutton-Willis, we have Mike Scholl, General Manager of Recreation and Parks here, who wants to give a really quick report. So I want to hear the item since he's waited back there the whole hearing, along with AP, on the Greek Theater. So if you could read item 12.
Item number 12, motion Rule O'Farrell relative to the status of the Greek Theater's operation and performance under its new management model, as well as the status of community impact concerns.
Mr. Scholl and Mr. Diaz, thank you for your patience, and let's hear what you have.
Thank you, council members. Mike Scholl, General Manager, and I'm joined by AP Diaz, my Chief of Staff. So very quickly, bookings at the Greek Theater, there's 71 concerts scheduled. We're about, I think we're right around the 50 mark right now. 7 different community events have happened, and approximately 224,000 patrons have gone through the gates so far this season. Talk a little bit about parking, shuttling, and traffic. We've had approximately 25,500 people use the shuttle system, so that's roughly 10%, which we're pretty happy with. That's about 250 cars a show that are parking off-site. That shuttling system is managed by DOT, so we're using the Dash bus system, which is proven and to been a pretty good move on our part to use them. The parking situation and traffic has been good. We've had, currently it's managed by Department of Transportation and a contractor that we brought that has been consistently working at the Greek Theater for a few years, and that's SP Parking. And we also have Rec and Parks people on the ground there as well, helping manage the traffic in and out. We do run approximately 8 shuttles or 8 dash buses per show per night. And we also have event staff that's stationed out along Vermont during show nights just to help the local community members in and out of their driveways, whatever assistance they might need with the amount of vehicles going up to the Greek. Saturdays, when there's an event at the observatory, proved to be the most challenging when you have we have a number of people that visit the observatory as well. But overall, we're very pleased with how the traffic has been going so far. Touch on noise. One of the actions was, or request was to discuss noise level management. We have a venue enforced sound levels, which is in the user agreement, which the promoters signed. So there are fines and associated fines with noise levels that exceed for a certain period of time the allowable decibel level, which is 95 dBA in the venue. We have sound technicians that monitor that during the show night, so they're routinely right in direct communication with the people at the soundboards to adjust the sound. We also have a community hotline, so when community complaints, if they do come in, it's within minutes that information is translated through the staff to the sound level technicians. So we've been able to manage that. We did have there was one show that we had some issues with, but since then, that was early in, I think, April when they had that show, and since then we haven't had any issues. Again, community calls are logged, and pretty much immediate response is taken, but I don't think we've received a whole lot of complaints on the sound throughout the season so far. There was just that one show that we had a couple complaints that came in. Security, we have 2 levels. We have LAPD off-duty and in uniform at the venue. And then we also have a company called CSC Security. Pretty much LAPD monitors the entire venue, the parking areas, the seating areas, and the gates. CSC, we use them to check bags as people come through the gates and things, and they also supplement the LAPD staff inside the venue. That's proven to be a pretty good model for us. LAPD's always been there, but this is the first year that they've been in actual uniforms, and that's what they prefer. We do have, plainclothes officers as well, but the security there has been very good working with LAPD, and we're very pleased with what LAPD has done at the venue. Just touch on a few community items. We do still hold monthly Greek Theater Advisory Committee meetings. With those are community meetings essentially, where there's a staff that goes through the advisory council that kind of talks about the venue and upcoming things and things that are related to the venue. The public's always there and invited to attend all those meetings. We also do monthly coffee hours with the general public. But I think the biggest thing that we did was putting a community liaison on site, which has proven to be the most successful, I think, because we have an open line of communication with all the neighborhood councils, the homeowners associations, and everybody that's inside the community. And there are actually, we have 2 employees there that work for Recreation and Parks that are that basically are at every concert. They're there every day, and they have an open line of communication with the public. Financial numbers. Oh, we also have a 24 to. We respond to anything that comes into the Greek within 24 to 48 hours. So the community gets a response back within that time frame. Touching on financial, basically the concert season, which began in mid-April and runs through the end of October. So the numbers that we've reconciled to date, which means the revenue that's come in, and we've gone through the process with our accounting staff and finance staff to make sure that everything is reconciled. From mid-April to the end of July, the net revenue is approximately $1.9 million. So that's about halfway through the season. It's at $1.9 million. And to put that into context, our 10-year average for the entire season has been approximately 1.5. So we're halfway through the season, and we've exceeded the 10-year average. It is worth noting that in 2014, which was the highest season total that we had on date, that we had approximately almost $2 million in revenue that was given to the department. So still, it's right about the same, about halfway through the season. It's also important to note that that number does not include sponsorships and a few other items. So financially, the model seems to be working quite well. And then lastly, we do have a board meeting scheduled for this Wednesday. And at that meeting, we'll be revisiting the user agreements and things for next season. Just to refresh the council members' memory, the last season, prior to the start of last season, we committed to 2 years of this model, which I presented to the full city council on. So we're preparing ourselves for that second season. So their SMG's contract, which is our venue management firm, we're renewing their contract for 1 more year. So, and lastly, at the end of the concert season, which is October 31st, somewhere around mid-November, we'd like to come back with a full financial and operation analysis of the entire season, so that we can give you a lot more detail on all of that. But that all of the numbers will be in at that point, and all of the shows will be done, and it'll be a little bit more appropriate. And it'll be at that time that we'll make a recommendation to both the city council and our board on kind of the future of the Greek Theater.
Definitely. We'll get you scheduled before Thanksgiving.
Be perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Mr. Diaz, anything to add? So I'm going to turn this over and be deferential to our colleague David Rue, since this is in his district. But I have one quick question. One comment, first of all. I wrote 3 exclamation marks on this one. From $1.9 million halfway over a 10-year average, when previous it's been, for an entire season, $1.5 million contribution to the city. So far, so great. That's really great to hear. And my question is, how many more concerts will there be? Are we going to be kind of on par with the 71, or we're at roughly 50 now? Might we have 20 or so more concerts?
No, it's been fixed at the 71 that's scheduled right now.
Okay, so it'll hit 71.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mike and AP, for hanging around till the very end. As you stated in your presentation, I do understand there were a few hiccups with noise and traffic, especially the first concert. However, I have heard many positive feedback from the community ever since. I know we worked through some of the issues early on, so and I heard about a lot of the overflow parking lot being well used and trying to take cars off Vermont. I mean, I definitely with the Griffith Park transportation mitigation plan, and I know I'm full aboard to support that. And of course, we want to again continue looking at the dashes and additional shuttle options that we discussed and that you're working on already. So I'm excited about all those things. Quick question about the contracts to October, is it October 30? Is the 1 year, right?
Correct.
So revenue up to date is 1.9. That's amazing. 1.9 from April to May. So that's
April through June.
April.
Or, excuse me, through July, through the end of July.
April. That's about 2/3 then. No, is it?
No, but when I say about midway, that was about midway through the number of concerts. So we really didn't have very many shows in May and June.
Oh, okay.
So most of the shows are like July, August, September.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just half the. So okay. So I was looking at the calendar year. So it's the actual concert.
Yeah, it's the number of shows. Yeah.
Oh wow. So roughly, we're going to project to go almost double that then.
Yeah, I mean, it appears that it'll be consistent with what we estimated. So we're comfortable in what we've reconciled to date. So the outlook does appear to be that, yes.
And as for the contract, it wasn't 2 years. Wasn't it a 1+1?
That's correct.
Right. Is it an automatic renewal or
no?
So when you come back in November, so contract ends October 31st, but you come back for contract approval for the second year in November, or don't you come before that?
No, the actual what we need to do and what we stated in last year when we went through the city council and through our board, we always said that we had to do a minimum of 2 years with. We didn't know it was SMG at the time, but I'll just say with SMG, with the venue management firm, because we need that second year. So if we come back in November, we're going to need that second year to do the actual RFP, whatever that is.
Right.
So it'll be, in November, we'll make a recommendation for the long term of the Greek, which means maybe 10 or more years. But for now, what we're doing this coming Wednesday at our board is just extending it for one more year, which is what we committed to.
So it gets extended at GTAC, not at the council?
At the commission? Yeah, on Wednesday, the recommendation will be to extend for one more year, and then that will be voted on at the commission this Wednesday, but that vote will not come to council.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, obviously. I mean, trying to do an RFP in the city of LA, it takes about a year. But, okay, so I was misunderstood. I thought it was a 1+1, and you guys came before for the second year agreement, but I guess I didn't know about the 2-year minimum.
Well, it's not a contract term. What we said is we did a 1-year contract with 2 1-year options.
But at a minimum 2 years.
We need to exercise the second year in order, because we needed 1 year to actually get all of the operational numbers in to be able to make a recommendation going forward. So after we make the recommendation, that'll be whatever that is, whatever that RP is. We'll use the time that they're operating, that SMG is managing the venue for us next year to do that.
Right. So it's not a minimum 2 years. It's a 1+1+1.
That's correct.
Okay. So it's not an automatic renewal. Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I mean, can we keep this in committee?
Well, we're going to have them back in November for a full report, and we can act on something at that time.
Right. Yeah. And if it's possible to get a preview of the report beforehand, that would be great.
There's also, Mr. Rue, we could certainly work with you on that. There's also, of course, a little bit more of a detailed written report that's currently online for our Wednesday meeting, which kind of touches on these things in a little bit more of an expanded view, including the contract. And your staff has that, but we'll be happy to make sure you have that too. So, certainly after that, before the November meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, I mean, I just feel more comfortable just in case if we do need to call them, instead of just doing another motion, if we could just keep it in committee.
I recommend that we adopt the motion, and then we can hold it in committee for the November report, if you'd like.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And so thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Yes, Mr.
Quick question. Thank you for the report. I know there had been some issues about some capital improvements to the facility. Is that going to be addressed in the follow-up report, or if we're going to adopt some new model, or how are those issues being addressed?
So, yeah, thanks, Councilmember Price. Yeah, there's actually two responses to that question. First, we actually did a lot of improvements to the Greek. Approximately, the detail of that will be in our November report, but we did a number of improvements before the start of this season. And one of the things that we adopted under this current open venue model is that $5 on every ticket goes towards a fund in Rec and Parks for ongoing capital improvements. So there will be a steady stream of funding source to help fund the improvements. So the answer to your question is yes. But there have been improvements done to date, and we're planning some additional off-season. A lot of the improvements that we did to date were infrastructure related. We also did a lot of electrical work. We did backstage improvements, huge improvements backstage, signage around the venue, general historic restoration stuff around the venue. But and to be honest with you, that's been very well received by the patrons who've come. They've noticed. So, but there's definitely more to come.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So, without objection, we will adopt the motion, and we will see you in mid-November once the season ends for the financials.
Great.
Thank you so much. Are there any other items on the table?
We are clear, sir.
No comment cards specific? Yeah, we're good. So I adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much.